Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar.
It was Flag Day a couple days ago, and I kept reading tweets from conservatives about how we should all stand for the flag, and that we should pledge our allegiance to it. Beyond my trolling of using the hashtag #AllFlagsMatter, I also reminded all these people that the original author of the Pledge of Allegiance was a Christian socialist by the name of Francis Bellamy. Why should you care? Well, just like the history of many things, the Pledge of Allegiance is complicated.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With all things American, the Pledge of Allegiance started out to solicit capital or as a marketing campaign. In 1888, the owner of the publication, The Youth's Companion, started a campaign to sell American flags to public schools as a premium to solicit magazine subscriptions. In conjunction with the schoolhouse flag movement, which aimed to place a flag above every public school, the magazine hired Francis to help promote the 400th year anniversary of Christopher Columbus reaching the Americas. The pledge was crafted to be used in conjunction with a flag-raising ceremony for the Columbus Day celebration across the nation in all schools. Bellamy's original draft of the pledge was, "I pledge allegiance to my flag and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." The pledge was also meant to be accompanied by a salute that Bellamy created himself, known as the Bellamy Salute, in which upon reading the pledge, came into the posture of the salute, snapped his heels together, and said, "Now up there is the flag. I come to salute as I say, I pledge allegiance to my flag. I stretch out my right hand and keep it raised while I say the stirring words that follow." During World War II, the Bellamy salute was then replaced with just placing your right hand over your heart because it resembled the Nazi salute too much. In 1923, the words "of America" were added after the National Flag Conference. Then, in 1954, in response to secular communism, President Eisenhower urged Congress to add the words "under God," which created the pledge we now know today. While I believe that the pledge begins the indoctrination of citizens to the state, Bellamy actually designed it to be an inoculation that would protect immigrants and native-born, but insufficiently patriotic Americans from the virus of radicalism and subversion. What I find most interesting is Bellamy's political and religious views. He was a self-declared Christian socialist. Why does this matter? Well, one, it's funny that the thing conservatives demand of others represents a call of unification under the state with the intent of pushing nationalization. Secondly, the idea of the pledge goes against their hyper-individualism philosophy. I mean, Bellamy was a part of the Christian Socialist movement, the movement that believed that Jesus taught left-wing economics. Many Christian socialists believe capitalism to be adulterous and rooted in the sin of greed. They also identify the cause of inequality to be the greed that they associate with capitalism. In 1891, he was forced out of the Boston pulpit for preaching the evils of capitalism and left the ministry after seeing the blatant racism in Florida churches. Many of his public education classes included topics such as Jesus the Socialist, what is Christian socialism, and socialism versus anarchy. Bellamy wrote an article in the Illustrated American that said, "A democracy like ours cannot afford to throw itself open to the world, where every man is a lawmaker. Every dull-witted or fanatical immigrant admitted to our citizenship is a bane to the Commonwealth. And further, where all classes of society merge insensibly into one another, every alien immigrant of inferior race may bring corruption to the stock. There are races more or less akin to our own whom we may admit freely and get nothing but advantage by the infusion of their wholesome blood. But there are other races which we cannot assimilate without lowering our racial standard, which should be as sacred to us as the sanctity of our homes." This quote talks about races that will lower the racial standard and that we should protect the idea with as much fervor as we protect our homes. He's incorporating similar rhetoric to that of Nazis. This idea that Americans were some superior race and that we should only import those that would be advantageous to mixing with. He didn't want to corrupt our stock. You would think he was a hypocrite since he left the service of the church over the racism he saw in Florida, but pretty much promotes it in this quote. See, Francis Bellamy was a socialist that promoted a strong centralized government. While I'm not being an apologist for his language with regards to the quote, he is speaking specifically about how immigrants from other nations wouldn't have the same democratic values as native-born Americans. They would bring other ideas of government with them, and they would begin to influence our democracy through the voter. Sound familiar? Sort of like reasoning to keep other people disenfranchised. Like women?
Women shouldn't have the vote. Because if you do give them the vote, they will mess up your psychological defenses and your legal systems, your protocols, your culture, and make it vulnerable.
I don't think he was viewing them as different races or like genetics, but with different ideas that would be antithetical to the American experiment. Whether it be different religions or ideas about how government should be structured, I think that was what he was talking about. We can see how the rhetoric of race becomes complex because back then many people believed there to be different races of humans based upon color. Fuck race realism. Also, one of the things that is commonly associated with socialism back then is strong nationalistic propaganda. Many of these socialists may have supported the working people, but also advocated for the indoctrination of the citizen to the state. They needed this in order to unify the working people to accept equality and work towards a common goal of the collective. Now, I may not agree with these tactics to basically use state propaganda to indoctrinate citizens through heavy rhetoric and forced nationalism, but I do understand its importance to the overall goal of collectivism. I, however, believe we can achieve a greater consciousness of one through education and free thinking. But the power that the government has can produce an intoxicating pheromone for the abuse of that power. I just find it funny that so many conservatives push this Pledge of Allegiance, while not understanding its history and why the author created it. Not only was it a marketing ploy to sell more American flags, it was also used to help promote a collective mindset through indoctrination, similar to how religion works. If anything, forcing children and citizens to say the pledge is completely un-American in my opinion. For one, children have no idea what they're reciting and don't understand the broader implications of those words. Secondly, forcing people to become hive-minded through state propaganda undermines the values of individualism and hampers the citizen's ability to accurately point out tyranny or abuse of power. The Pledge of Allegiance is just a tool to create mindless sheep. Thanks guys for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Leave some comments if you disagree. I'm always up for discussing things. And thanks for the listen. Have a good one.